and give me the $20 million that I need to make the vaccine, it would happen very soon. It's all about money. And it doesn't have to be my vaccine. It could be the Gates vaccine that they're working on that's a multi-epitope, multi-clade vaccine. It's just about funding. I do not believe, that's what I hope you go away with, the Merck vaccine is not the end of this story. It shows a failed approach, one that we really didn't think was going to succeed, even from the get-go. Now we need to abandon those failed approaches and start funding the approaches that will work. And if we do that, we will have a vaccine.
And a note about the funding of vaccines. I mean, I think that historically one of the problems that's happened is that we've been able all along to see the people most at risk for AIDS as other than ourselves. At first in this country we said, well, it's homosexual men, it's IV drug users, it's not us sitting here. And then there was a tremendous wave of political activism which proved that the government does listen, and the government can be made to allocate money on the basis of an outcry from the citizenry. And that's when funding really increased in the 1980s. I mean, that's a remarkable story, and AIDS activists showed the way to breast cancer activists and every other patient advocacy movement that has gotten substantial tax dollars for its research. But now, more recently, we during the last decade or so, we have conceptualized HIV and AIDS as a problem of people on other continents. And so the demand side from the citizens and voters is not there. You know, we're not saying to Congressman Paul Brown, you know, we're not saying to Georgia's Republican senators, you know what, we really think that getting an HIV vaccine for the world is important. We talk about the University of Georgia's commitment to international careers for our students, and I love that. That's an important thing. I don't know what marvelous things people in this room may accomplish working outside our own country, but you know what? It is just one world, and a disease of this magnitude, with these kinds of modeling projections for transmission and spread, we have to see it as our problem. We have to say this is a political issue. We think this is a top health funding priority, but we've not done that. So it's been. And, you know, great ideas, great scientific ideas, they are, in a sense, a dime a dozen. Not to denigrate the kind of accomplishment of a lab like Annie de Groot's. But what's really expensive is moving those ahead into factories to make vaccines and then moving them ahead into clinical trials, which are enormously expensive but cost less than the wing of a stealth bomber.
Thank you. Yes? Well, what's interesting about drugs these days is that there was a big effort to get tiered pricing, part of which was led by Paul Farmer and Jim Kim, Jim Kim spoke here. And that has actually happened. So there is tiered pricing, and countries, developing world countries, are able to purchase drugs at a discounted price. And Bill Clinton, to his credit, has been a major driver as well, reducing the cost of drugs in developing world countries from $15,000 per patient per year, which is untenable, to $300 per patient per year, which is paid for by the Global Fund, usually. But the problem with that, and I will actually talk about this in the journalism class tomorrow, is that it still doesn't get out to the people who need it. So in Mali, the country I know the most about, there are probably about 120, 180, 150,000 people living with HIV in that country, 3 times the size of Texas, but only 8,000 people on medication. Because there aren't enough doctors, and because there simply isn't enough push or pull to get the drugs out. So they're the same level of activism that we have in the United States, ACT UP, all of the gay men's health crisis, all of those groups don't exist in developing world countries, and there isn't the same level of advocacy. There's still a huge amount of stigma Even the doctors are afraid of treating patients with HIV because they haven't seen them live with HIV the way we have. So getting the medications out is one of the biggest problems, and yet that's not going to be enough. That will only treat the people who get infected, and it won't prevent people from getting infected.
The expansion of treatment programs globally is a great thing. Jim Kim, when he spoke to us 2 months ago, talked, though, about how the centerpiece of his time as leader of the World Health Organization's AIDS programs was a so-called 3x5 program, the goal of treating 3 million people in the developing world by the year 2005. It simply didn't happen. It hasn't happened.
Same reason, failure of funding, not sufficient funding, and we talk about the numbers that were, the $20 per person in the United States per year would get funding to everybody on the planet. So it's there, this is doable, but it's just lack of leadership.
Some of your long-term non-progressors, have you been able to see in samples from them to identify some of the same epitope-specific responses that are the targets that you've identified?
So we actually mapped our epitopes with some of those patients. So we were able to get a cohort of patients in Providence who are elite controllers, and when we predicted our epitopes, we then confirmed using their blood that they donated whether we were right. And so that was the great news. That paper was published in 2005. Very good question. There was one in the back, yeah.
These Achilles heels, where are they found in the virus? What are they involved in?
Well, they're actually found even in the envelope, which is the most variable protein in the body. And what are they involved in? They are probably involved with holding the structure of the protein together so that it has its function. I mean, the proteins of the HIV virus perform a function. One of them is a protease. It cuts pieces of protein. But if it doesn't have the scissor-like shape, then it can't actually cut. So perhaps some of these epitopes are actually at the functional part of the scissors, and that's why they're conserved. But no, you can't actually ascribe a function to something that's only 9 amino acids long, usually. You can say it's within this particular region.
So I think we can take this discussion next door to Demosthenian Hall, where refreshments are waiting for us all, and let's thank Dr. de Groot for coming.
Thank you.